Mike had been driving for 3 hours straight. His eyes were heavy, his neck stiff, his back aching from sitting too long. But home was only 25 miles away. He could handle it. Josh dozed in the passenger seat, head tilted back, occasionally jerking awake when they hit a pothole. His light snoring mixed with the quiet music from the radio, some late-night program, a Diz monotone voice talking about tomorrow's weather. Perfect background noise for zoning out completely. They were coming back from a fishing trip at Pine Creek Lake. They'd left late, sat too long by the campfire, finished off the last of the trout they'd caught, drank the final beers, didn't want to end a rare weekend off. Josh had been going on about his problems at work. Mike had been half listening and tossing branches into the fire. Good times, no wives, no kids, no worries. Just two friends, a tent, fishing rods, and silence. Now they were paying for that peace with exhaustion and an empty night highway where streetlights appeared once every mile and oncoming traffic was non-existent. The last time they'd seen another car was maybe 20 minutes ago. Some pickup had roared past at insane speed. Another 40 minutes, Mike muttered, glancing at the DAP's screen on the dashboard. Josh made some unintelligible sound without opening his eyes and turned toward the window. Mike turned on the seat warmers. The night had gotten unexpectedly cold, though the daytime heat had been normal for late August. He turned up the radio volume to keep from falling asleep. The D had moved on to commercials, insurance, auto service, some mattress sale. Everything was normal. Boring even. Just a long drive home after a good weekend. Nothing, absolutely nothing, suggested what would happen in 10 minutes. The gaps suddenly beeped louder than usual. In 200 yards, turn right, the mechanical female voice announced. New route will save time. Mike frowned and looked at the screen. Right. That should be some secondary road. He vaguely remembered it being narrow, unmarked, clearly not a main route. He'd driven past that turn a couple of times during the day and never thought about where it led. Why turn there now, at 2 in the morning? He looked more carefully at the screen. The gaps had recalculated the route, showed an alternative path, a red line leaving the main highway. Winding through some settlements, crossing a couple of dirt roads, and rejoining the interstate about 15 miles later. Time saved. 17 minutes. 17 minutes was tempting. That meant he'd be home not at 2:30 but at 2:20. He'd have time for a shower, a glass of water, collapse into bed, and still get decent sleep before work Monday. Josh, Mike nudged his friend. Hey, look at this. Josh cracked one eye open, struggled to focus, and looked at the glowing screen. What? The gaps wants us to turn. Says it's 17 minutes faster. Josh shifted his gaze to the road ahead, where the headlights picked out a roadside sign with a barely legible name, Old Ridge Road, 200 yards. Where even is that? He rubbed his eyes. Through some village. Yeah, through Old Ridge or something like that. The map shows it's a through road. At night through a village. Josh snorted skeptically and yawned. Listen, maybe not. You know the rule at night, stick to main roads. My dad always taught me that. Mike hesitated, slowing down before the turn. On one hand, Josh was right. The rule was indeed simple and proven. At night, stick to lit highways, don't venture into unfamiliar places. On the other hand, 17 minutes was 17 minutes. And this wasn't some forest dirt road, it was a village. People live there, roads should be decent. The Gapes wasn't stupid, it was modern technology, millions of dollars of development. If it suggested a route, the road must be good. Plus, Mike was tired. Very tired. Every extra minute behind the wheel was getting harder. "Come on," he said decisively, turning on the blinker, though there wasn't a single car around. It's not like it's through the woods. A village probably has pavement. We'll zip through and be home. Your car, your decision. Josh shrugged and closed his eyes again. Just if we get stuck in mud, you're pushing alone. Mike chuckled and turned the wheel right. There was no pavement. Well, there had been once. Now it was a sadly broken road full of deep potholes and cracks, overgrown on the edges with tall weeds and thistles. The car immediately started bouncing over bumps, the suspension creaked, something clinked in the trunk, probably fishing gear. "Damn it," Josh cursed, instantly waking up and grabbing the handle above the door. "Seriously, this is probably has pavement." The Gap said 17 minutes. Mike defended himself, though he was already cursing to himself and regretting his decision. He dropped speed to 20 miles per hour, swerving around particularly deep potholes. The headlights picked out crooked wooden posts with torn wires, rusted road signs impossible to read, an old barbed wire fence nobody had repaired in years. The road ran through fields, left and right stretched darkness, occasionally broken by dark silhouettes of lone trees. Then came sparse brush. No lights anywhere. No cars. Not even any animals, no deer, not even a rabbit. Just dead silence, the sound of gravel under the wheels, and the monotonous squeak of the suspension. "How much more of this pleasure?" Josh asked, looking at the Gap screen. "Gap's is frozen." Mike tapped the screen. "The arrow's spinning, but the map isn't moving." "Lost signal." "Wonderful. Just wonderful. The village should be ahead. We'll drive through it and get back on the highway." Mike tried to sound confident, though he was starting to get nervous himself. They drove another 5 minutes on this broken road. Mike was already thinking about turning around, forgetting those 17 minutes, and returning to the highway when the first structures appeared ahead. A village. But this wasn't the kind of village where warm light glows in windows, where old folks sit on porches, where dogs bark and cats mew. This was a place life had abandoned long ago. Houses stood as dark, grim boxes on both sides of the road. Roofs sagged and tilted, some had almost completely collapsed. Windows were broken or boarded up, with rags of old curtains hanging on them. Yards were overgrown waist-high with grass, with rusted remains of farm equipment, overturned buckets, broken children's swings sticking out. The car rolled slowly down the main street, and one by one, dead facades with peeling paint, crooked porches, sagging gates, floated past in the yellow headlight beams. "Jesus," Josh said quietly, looking around. Nobody's here. Nobody at all. I can see that. Mike gripped the wheel tighter, his knuckles white. The feeling was eerie. Not just an abandoned village. Mike had seen enough of those across America, dying towns young people had left for big cities. But there were usually at least some signs of life: a couple of old folks, someone's car, a dog barking in the distance. Here there was nothing. Absolute emptiness. As if people had been evacuated urgently and never returned. The Gapes continued its silence. The screen glowed, but the map was frozen, the arrow spinning meaninglessly in place. Searching for signal. The message read, "Maybe we should go back," Josh suggested uncertainly. "Before it's too late." Mike looked back. The street behind them was just as narrow, and turning around in complete darkness among these dead houses filled with who knows what felt particularly unpleasant. Ahead he could see the street continued. If they drove through the village, they should come out the other side and return to civilization. "We'll drive through," Mike decided. "The village is small. See. Another 1,000 feet and it'll end." "Okay," Josh nodded but didn't remove his hand from the handle. "Just let's hurry. I don't like it here." Mike pressed the gas, and the car rolled faster, bouncing over bumps. A crooked store with a broken display window flashed by on the right. On the left, something like a former school, a 2-story building with boarded windows. Further came just residential houses, one after another, all equally dead. And then, ahead on the right, a light suddenly came on in one of the houses. Both saw it at the same moment. They both froze. The light was dim, yellow, flickering like from an old incandescent bulb or candle. It glowed in a single second-floor window of an ordinary 2-story house. The only living spot in this absolutely dead village. Mike instinctively slowed down. The car almost stopped. "Wait!" Josh straightened in his seat. "Someone lives there?" "I don't know." Mike peered at the lit window. They sat silently, staring at that strange light. It didn't flicker or move. Just burned steadily in the darkness. Around it blackness, emptiness, dead houses. And their living light. "This is strange," Mike muttered. "Very strange. Maybe they need help." Josh turned to him. "I mean, who knows? Maybe some old folks stayed behind, didn't leave. Or someone got lost like us. Or it's a trap," Mike muttered, but didn't really believe his own words. "A trap?" Josh chuckled nervously. "What, you been watching too many thrillers? Who'd be setting traps here?" Mike didn't answer. Logic said Josh was right. What trap, what paranoia. Someone just lived in that house, didn't want to leave. It happens. People get attached to places, don't want to abandon their family home. But intuition, that same ancient, animal intuition that had saved humans from predators and dangers for millions of years, was whispering something to him. Something was wrong. Something about this picture was deeply incorrect. He slowly drove closer. The house was in slightly better condition than the rest. The roof seemed intact, the fence not completely crooked, even the porch was holding. But the yard was still overgrown waist-high with grass, and a rusty lock hung on the gate. Mike stopped the car directly across from the house, about 30 feet from the fence. The headlights illuminated the facade old paint peeling down to bare wood, empty first-floor windows. And that single lit window on the second floor. "Maybe we ask how to get through," Josh suggested. "Say our EPS broke." Mike wanted to answer, wanted to roll down the window and yell something, but didn't get the chance. Because a human silhouette appeared in the lit window. It was a man, you could tell by the figure's outline. Tall, broad-shouldered. He stood motionless in the center of the window, looking down directly at their car with its headlights on. "Hey, Seb." Josh leaned forward. "Someone's there." Mike was silent. Something about this motionless figure, the way it stood absolutely still, made him increasingly nervous. The person in the window didn't wave. Didn't gesture, come closer. Didn't yell. Didn't smile. He just stood and watched. And then slowly, very slowly, raised his right hand. Mike tensed it. Now he'll wave, call out, ask for something. But the person didn't wave. He made one single gesture clear. Unmistakable, impossible to misinterpret. He waved his hand to the side. "Leave. Right now. Not help. Not come in. Not stop. Leave." The face wasn't visible, too dark, too far. But that gesture said everything. There was no aggression or anger in it. It wasn't "get out of here, outsiders." It was a warning. It was, if you don't leave right now, it'll be too late. And the next second the light in the window went out. All at once, as if someone had flipped a switch. The village plunged back into absolute darkness. For several long seconds they sat in deafening silence. Only the car's engine was running a soft, steady hum. The headlights lit up the empty house facade where a window had been glowing a second ago. "What?" Josh was first to break the silence. "What was that?" "I don't know." Mike heard his own voice sound tense. "But I think we really need to." He didn't finish the sentence. Because from the corner of his eye, beyond the bright headlight beams, in the darkness surrounding their car, he saw movement. Left. At the house across the street. A shadow. A quick figure sliding along the house wall and disappearing around the corner. "Mike." Josh's voice got quieter. "Did you see that?" "I saw it." His heart started beating faster. Mike jerked his head left, peering into the darkness. Nothing. Empty street, dead houses. But no. There. On the right now. Behind the crooked fence. Another shadow. It slipped by quickly, crouching, and disappeared into the darkness of the yard. "Oh God," Josh exhaled. "Someone's there." The shadows weren't approaching the car directly. They moved parallel on the sides as if surrounding them. Not running, sliding, creeping, using darkness and buildings as cover. Mike slowly turned his head, trying to see more. How many were there? 2 figures? 3? 5? In the darkness, it was impossible to say exactly. And the scariest part, absolute silence. No footsteps, no voices, no rustling. Just these sliding silhouettes in the darkness moving around them. The doors, Josh croaked. Are the doors locked? Mike jerked forward and slammed his fist on the central lock button on the door. The click of the locks sounded deafeningly loud in the cabin's silence. All 4 doors locked. Windows too, Mike commanded, and they both quickly checked that the windows were rolled all the way up. Josh grabbed his phone. I'll call the police. He unlocked the screen but immediately cursed. No signal. None at all. Not even a network icon. Mike pulled out his phone. Same thing, complete absence of signal. As if they'd fallen into a dead zone or back in time where cell towers didn't exist. And at that moment something thudded dully at the back of the car. On the trunk. Shit! Josh yelled, spinning around sharply. Mike looked in the rearview mirror. In the red glow of the taillights, a figure flashed for a second and immediately jumped back into the darkness. There at the car. Josh grabbed the dashboard. Mike, they're right at the car. His heart was pounding so hard Mike could hear his pulse in his ears. His hands started shaking. The ancient instinct fight or flight kicked in full force, adrenaline flooding his blood. Run. Drive away. No. We're turning around, Mike said hoarsely and grabbed the gearshift. Do it. Turn around. Josh screamed. But there was nowhere to turn. The street was narrow, about 20 feet wide, maybe 25. Fences, houses, overgrowth on the sides. Mike floored it. The car lurched forward about 60 feet, then he sharply cranked the wheel left, turning the wheels all the way, and hit the brakes. The car turned halfway, the front end ramming into someone's crooked fence. Back! Back! Josh yelled, looking in the side mirror. Mike threw it in reverse. The engine screamed. He floored the gas, the car jerked backward, wheels spinning on gravel, suspension creaked, the rear bumper crunched into something, probably old gates across the street. The headlights swept across house facades, picking out a porch, then a window, then a fence, then a figure standing in the middle of the road. About 60 feet away, directly in their path. Just standing. Motionless. Watching their car. In the headlight beams, only a silhouette was visible, a person in dark clothing, wide-brimmed hat or hood. And they started walking toward them. Slowly. Deliberately. Mike spun the wheel the other way. The car completed the turn. He jammed first gear, the gas pedal hit the floor. The engine screamed at high revs. The wheels spun for a second, throwing gravel and dust backward, then caught traction, and the car shot forward. They flew past that house with the lit window, now it was dark. Past the crooked store. Past the old school. Mike didn't even think about potholes and bumps. The car was jumping over bumps. Something was banging in the trunk. The suspension was squeaking, but he didn't slow down. In the rearview mirror, he could see figures emerging from the darkness, from yards, from behind houses. Many figures. 10, 15, 20. They stood in the middle of the street watching the departing car. And then the village was behind them. The car burst onto the same broken road they'd arrived on, and Mike didn't slow down until lights appeared ahead, sparse, distant, but so welcome lights of the real highway. Only when the wheels hummed on normal asphalt again, when the first oncoming semi with trailer roared past. When road signs and guardrails appeared on both sides again, only then did Mike allow himself to exhale a little. He drove another 10 minutes in silence, gripping the wheel with white knuckles. Josh sat with his face in his hands, breathing heavily. The gaps suddenly came alive. The screen blinked, the map loaded. The cheerful female voice announced brightly, "You have returned to the route. Continue straight ahead." "Shut up," Mike hissed through his teeth, and turned off the gaps, jabbing the button. Josh raised his head. "Fun," he said hoarsely. "Check your phone." Mike pulled his phone from his pocket with one hand. The screen lit up 4 signal bars. Connection was back. "Got signal," he confirmed. "Me too," Josh stared at his screen. Like we were in some kind of hole. Dead zone. They drove several more kilometers. Mike was calming down, his heart beating slower, hands stopped shaking. But one thing kept spinning in his head. What was that? Who was that? "Pull over," Josh suddenly said. "What?" "Their gas station." "Let's stop." I need to get out. Breathe." Ahead on the right glowed a 24-hour Shell station, bright lights, several cars at the pumps, a small convenience store. A little corner of civilization paradise. Mike turned in and parked away from the pumps. Killed the engine. The silence seemed deafening after the engine's roar. Josh was first out of the car. He pulled out cigarettes, though he'd quit smoking a year ago, and lit up with shaking hands. Mike joined him, leaning against the hood. The night air was cool and fresh. Smelled of gasoline and roadside dust. From the highway came the sound of passing cars, such an ordinary, calming sound. What was that? Josh finally exhaled, blowing smoke. "Mike, what the hell was that?" "I don't know." "That person in the window." Josh ran his hand over his face. "He warned us. He knew. He waved at us leave. I saw. And then those shadows, those people, they surrounded us. They—" Josh swallowed. What did they want? Mike was silent. He didn't know the answer. And didn't want to know. But deep inside, in that place where ancient instincts live, where intuition resides, there he knew. They wanted the car to stop. Stall. For Mike and Josh to get out. Or for them to just stay there, in that village, for another minute. Another 30 seconds. And then it would have been too late. "We need to go to the police," Josh said. "We have to report it. Something's happening there. Maybe bandits. Maybe." "Yes," Mike agreed, taking out his phone. "Tomorrow morning we'll go. Tell them everything. But now let's go home." Josh nodded, finished his cigarette, and stubbed it out on the asphalt. They got back in the car. Mike started the engine, and they pulled onto the highway. Back to the world of light, people, and safety. The rest of the drive they rode in silence. The radio was off, each thinking his own thoughts. But both were thinking about the same thing. The next day, Sunday, Mike woke up late. His head was splitting, though he hadn't been drinking. Just hadn't slept nightmares all night. Dark streets, crooked houses, sliding shadows. He made coffee, sat down at his laptop, and opened Google Maps. Found the route they'd taken last night. Zoomed in on the map, found the turn onto Old Ridge Road. And started reading. The first thing he did, typed the village name into search, Old Ridge. Results appeared instantly. First link, news on a local news portal, dated 2 months ago. Police seek witnesses in disappearance of tourist couple near Old Ridge area. Brian Connor, 34, and Emily Connor, 31, vanished without a trace on the night of June 15. Their Toyota Camry was found abandoned on the outskirts of Ghost Village, Old Ridge, with doors open and engine running. Personal belongings remained in the car. Investigation doesn't rule out criminal version. Any information? Mike went cold. He clicked the next link. Drug dealers hideout discovered in abandoned houses near Old Ridge. Pine County Police conducted raid resulting in arrest of 7 people. Drugs, weapons, and large sum of money seized. According to Sheriff John McKenzie, the criminal group used the remote location of the abandoned village for their activities. We'd long suspected something was happening there but didn't have sufficient evidence, he stated. This news was 4 months old. Mike continued reading, clicking link after link. Local residents report strange activity in area of abandoned Old Ridge Village. Several people saw lights in windows at night and suspicious vehicles. Sheriff recommends avoiding this area after dark and immediately reporting any suspicious activity. Truck driver Robert Hayes claims he was targeted for stop on road near Old Ridge last evening. I was driving on Old Ridge Road and suddenly people appeared on the road with flashlights waving their arms like they needed help. But something was wrong. I just drove past at speed, and good thing I did. In my mirror I saw them running after me. Police are investigating the incident. Mike closed the laptop. His hands were shaking again. He pulled out his phone and called Josh. "Hello." His friend's voice was sleepy and hoarse. "I found information about Old Ridge," Mike said. "We were very, very lucky last night." Pause. "What did you find?" Josh no longer sounded sleepy. Mike told him. About the missing tourists. About the drug dealers. About the hideout in the abandoned houses. About attempts to stop cars. When he finished, there was silence on the other end. "That person in the window," Josh finally said. "He saved our lives. He warned us." "Yes," Mike confirmed. "If we'd gotten out of the car. If we'd killed the engine. If we'd delayed even a minute." He didn't finish. Didn't need to. They both knew what could have happened. On Monday, Mike and Josh went to the police station. Told everything about the gaves, about the turn, about the village, about the light in the window and the warning gesture, about the shadows and the encirclement, about the escape. The police officer, Officer Daniels, an elderly man with a mustache, wrote everything in a report and nodded. "You were lucky, gentlemen," he said when they finished. "Very lucky. We know about Old Ridge. We've conducted raids there, but it's a large territory, lots of hiding places. These bastards, Excuse my language. They use abandoned places for their business. Stop cars, rob, kidnap. There have been cases. And that person in the window. Josh asked, who could that have been? Daniels shrugged. Don't know. Maybe a local who didn't want to leave. Maybe someone who fell into their hands and is now forced to help. Or, he paused, or someone's conscience woke up. That happens too. He set down his pen. In any case, that person warned you. And you did the right thing leaving immediately. We'll pass the information to the investigations department. Thanks for coming in. They left the station at noon. The sun was shining brightly, the streets were full of people, cars were honking, someone was selling hot dogs on the corner. Normal life. Safe, bright, noisy life. You know, Josh said, squinting in the sun, I'm never listening to gaps at night again. Neither, Mike agreed. And he kept that promise. A year passed. Mike still went fishing. Sometimes with Josh, sometimes alone. But now he always planned the route ahead. Always left in daylight. And never, under any circumstances, left the main road after dark. Even if the cops promised to save an hour. Even if he was very tired and really wanted to get home. Some shortcuts cost too much. And sometimes 17 minutes is the difference between life and death. And somewhere out there, in that abandoned village, in one of the dark houses, maybe a light still sometimes comes on in a window. And some unknown person watches the darkness, looking for headlights of random cars. To warn, to save, to give a chance to leave before it's too late.